My name is Stephen Long, and I host a show here on Rock Candy called Sacred Tension, the podcast about the spiritual discipline of asking questions. We cover topics from LGBT issues to faith and doubt and mental health. We talk to biblical scholars and have conversations about religious abuse and leaving faith and finding it again. We also talk to pastors and skeptics and cult experts who are all sorting out their own journey of faith. Please join me in these conversations on Sacred Tension right here on Rock Candy.
Welcome to the Eleventylife podcast.
What's up, Eleventy family? Matt here, and I am so happy that you are joining us for today's episode. We are bringing back a solo button. This has been like a few months since we've actually done one of these, and we decided to do a song called Wish Myself Away from our last full-length album called Rad Science, and yeah, that's what we're going to do on today's episode. It's going to be awesome. We're taking a deep dive into it. Today is a very special day for Eleventyseven and the Rock Candy family. We are announcing our next full-length album called Basic Glitches, and we have put together an incredibly awesome pre-order campaign over on Kickstarter to allow you to pre-order this album. We have put together some amazing pre-order packages that we cannot wait to share with all of you, and they are all hiding in plain sight over there on our Kickstarter page. You can get to that pre-order campaign by clicking on the link in the show notes for this very show. Album releases are the funnest thing for bands. They are an awesome excuse for us to all get together and celebrate the release of new music into the wild. And we have some of the best fans, friends, and family who support what we do. And we always get excited when this part of the cycle rolls around. So if you have been a bystander on the sidelines, sort of looking in at what our band is doing or what Rock Candy is doing, let me encourage you, please go pick up a copy of this new record. Help us reach this goal that we have on Kickstarter, and you will not be disappointed. We have CDs, limited edition, super badass vinyl, some sick new tee designs, and the best thing of all, we are giving away a brand new Korg Monologue synthesizer to celebrate the release of this album. But it is not just any synthesizer, it is a Basic Glitches themed Korg Monologue synthesizer, and one of you is going to get it for free. Let me tell you how to win this thing right now, so listen up. When you back us on this Kickstarter campaign at any level, it could be $1, it could be $1,000, it could be whatever you decide that you want to spend to see more of our weirdness put into the world, you automatically get signed up for our mailing list, and that is literally all that it takes. If you are a part of our mailing list, you are automatically entered to win this synthesizer. Now, we also have a video about this on our Facebook page, letting everyone know about this free synth giveaway. If you share that video, it also increases your chances of winning the synthesizer. So at the very end of this campaign, what we're going to do is take all of these shares, all of these social media shares, and all of these new emails that we get, put them into a gigantic virtual hat, and draw from there. So it doesn't matter if you spend $1 or $20 or $40 or $50, you still have a chance, the exact same chance that everybody else has, to win this synthesizer. And I cannot wait to see which one of you wins it. So go ahead right now while you're thinking about it, head to the show notes in your iPhone or in your mobile device and click on that Kickstarter campaign link and see if there's something in there that strikes your fancy. I am really hoping that somebody who is as nerdy about synthesizers as we are wins this thing. So best of luck to all of you, and yeah, let's do a solo button episode. I promised myself that I would keep this episode short and sweet and to the point. So without further ado, let's hit the solo button on Wish Myself Away. A little bit of background on this song. It was originally written for the album Sugar Fist, and for whatever reason, we were not able to get it onto that record in time, or we're not able to, or didn't have the budget to record it or something. So you can find this as the very last track on our album, Rad Science. This is a song that means a whole lot to me personally. It's kind of like my own mini pep rally of a thing, and has pulled me out of the dumps more times than I can count. So yeah, I'm really excited about this. I'm going to play you guys the final mastered version of this track on the show, and then as soon as that is over, we will dive into the solo button so we can hear what's going on beneath the surface.
I'm disguising all my whining with 3 chords and 4/4 timing. Line by line, I realize I'm the same I was when I was 5. I'll admit to narcissism. Healthy keeps me out of prison. The situation's tragic, 'cause I can break your heart, but not these habits. I wish I was a little more confident. I wish I had a little more of the itch. lies me with 1,000 little lies. I'll wrap my version of the truth around the finger in my mind. When I doubt, I'll write my confidence a check I know will bounce, and it serves me right for not cleaning up after my mind. I wish I was a little more confident. I wish I had a little more of the it factor they say you need to amount to anything. I wish I rocked a little harder, pushed the line a little farther. I wish that I was okay being me. I wish I burned a little brighter, could make my heart a little lighter. I wish I wouldn't wish myself away. I wish I was a little more punk than pop, a little less cotton candy rock. And it's about time that I admit, I wish I wrote better songs than this. A little more hanging with my friends, a little less stressing out again, a little less Michael Frackin' Bay, a little more point to my story. I wish I rocked a little harder, pushed the line a little farther. I wish I wouldn't wish myself away. Yeah. I wish I burned a little brighter, could make my heart a little lighter. I wish I wouldn't wish myself away. I wish I wouldn't wish myself away.
So this song, I am almost positive, originated on an acoustic guitar, and it had to have been one of the last songs that we ever recorded in our attic studio in Black Mountain, North Carolina. This was the same place that we recorded Sugar Fist and Attack of the Mountain Medley and that slew of EPs that we did. And it was a very, very tiny room, tiny space that we recorded in. And I think that we knew that the one thing we wanted to be able to outsource was the drums. So a friend of ours was working at this studio at the time called Sedgwig I think it's in Flat Rock, North Carolina, and they have an amazing space in there to record drums. It was essentially like a cabin, but like a cabin to where it's 3 stories, and the very top story of the cabin spills out onto the second story. So there's this huge sort of cavernous area to be able to record drums in and get these really big sounds. So that's what we opted to do. I do remember that in this session in particular, we started spending so much time trying to get drum tones that at some point we just said, you know what, the overhead mics sound really good, all of the room mics sound great, and the kit overall sounds pretty great. So why don't we just go ahead and start tracking, and then we'll figure out what we can do in post. So as you can tell, the song opens up with the drums just like busting out of the gate immediately. And here's what they're like soloed. So this is closer to what you're hearing on the record. But the actual drum tones that we got for the kick and the snare, we were not very happy with. So I'm sure that you guys know a lot of times in popular music that drum replacement is used. If you've ever been to a live show and seen your favorite live drummers in your bands, there's something to the energy that you feel in that performance that they're giving. And it comes from the nuances that they're putting into how they're playing their instrument, and the way that they'll kind of hit the snare, the way that not all the hits of the drums are the same. It makes the beat feel more human. It makes the kit feel more human. And a lot of times in A lot of times in rock and pop, the drum samples get replaced to provide the illusion that the drummer is consistently hitting the snare and the kick drum in a way that would be a little more robotic, I think. It makes the hits sound more consistent. A lot of times if you end up with like a really dull kit, you can supplement those with samples of drums that cost more or were recorded under better circumstances in pricier rooms with better gear. So anyway, we've been doing drum replacement probably since our first demos that we ever did way back in 2003 or 4, I think. So here's what the kick drum sounded like before we added any samples to it. Let's see here. Yeah, so it's got a tone to it. Like it feels like the kick drum is actually playing a note, which all kick drums are, but this one feels a little bit more pronounced. And I can't remember why, but at the time we were just having a hard time getting that out of there. Here it is with even less processing on it. Yeah, so pretty dirty, really boomy. When something is super boomy like that, it's hard to maintain the impact that the kick is supposed to have. So we threw some gates on it and we supplemented it with a sample. And so what you end up hearing on the record is actually this kick drum. Yeah. So the same thing with the snare. I think I very distinctly remember being really unhappy with how the snare was sounding, but it sounded pretty nice in the overhead. So here's what the snare sounds like by itself without any processing. Yeah. So much hi-hat bleed, and the snare itself feels a little bit limp. Just not quite there. So we throw some gates on it. And we end up sampling it, or sampling over top of it with this guy, which I'm pretty sure is a snare sample, a couple of room samples, and maybe even an overhead mic sample, and then just compress the shit out of it. So yeah, that's the solo button on the kick and snare. Pretty underwhelming by themselves, but then once we start to get down here to the overheads are where we ended up getting a lot of the energy for the track. And we had our great friend Mike Atkins play drums on these tracks, and he is just an absolute beast when it comes to studio time tracking in the studio. So here's what we ended up with in our overhead mics. So these are the close overheads, and I think there was a mono overhead as well. So either way, these are just, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 feet from the actual kit. And I think they sound really good. They feel very spacious and open, and like they have a lot of room to breathe. They're picking up a lot of the nuance in the kit. And so we also had these room mics. And like I was saying before, this room that we tracked in had this really cool area where it kind of spilled out over into the second floor. So you're playing in the attic, but then you can see down to the second floor. So we decided to put some room mics down there, and this is what they picked up. Yeah, so just super, super far away sounding. But when we throw them into the overheads, it actually makes the kit sound so much bigger. And then when we add in our close mics and our samples, all of a sudden the kit starts to come to life a little bit more. Yep, and again, cannot say enough about Mike Atkins' drumming. He's an amazing talent. If you get the chance to work with him on your record, tell him that Eleventy sent you, and he'll probably roll his eyes. Anyway, so that's the drums that are happening. I do remember that for this song, we had a specific guitar setup that was kind of akin to the way we had set up guitars for Sugar Fist, except these, I think, were a little bit cleaner. So for the guitars, this is what you hear when the song first comes in. are all of these guys playing at once along with the drums. Yeah. And you can kind of tell that they're a little bit fuzzy in the bottom end. They feel a little bit spitty. I think while we were tracking, we noticed that, and we just kind of thought, well, that sounds a little bit more like it would if we were in a rehearsal space or at practice, or it sounded kind of like the home videos of us rehearsing like back when we were in high school. And I think there was something kind of nostalgic about it that we really liked. So yeah. We just decided to keep it and go with it. So all together, here's what's happening. Yeah, and then I think down here, we had, over top of just those power chords, we had some octaves happening as well. So if I remember correctly, the setup for this was we tracked just a standard. Oh, no. I'm recalling that differently. We started out tracking guitars with the Stratocaster from the MySpace music video that we have since gutted and put all new electronics and everything in because we just absolutely wore that thing out on the road. Pretty sure we were running that into an orange dual terror. We layered that guitar tone with an SG that we were running through a Mesa mini rectifier to kind of get a little bit more of that buzzsaw kind of edge to it. So by the time all the guitars come in around the second half of the verse, we're at yeah, and then we kind of start to have that little Weezer moment in the bridge, which I really enjoy. So here's what's happening in the bass. We actually ended up tracking, whenever we track bass, we normally run a Sans amp and like a really clean DI. And we'll use the really clean DI to sort of accentuate the sub frequencies, the really low stuff in the bass. And we'll use the Sans amp for a lot of the body and color and sort of grit that you get from that. So here's the Sans amp track of the bass. I mean, this is like one of my favorite pieces of gear of all time. This Sans amp pedal, they're like less than $100 on Reverb, and they can make the shittiest bass sound amazing. I've seen it happen time and time again. I've never run into a situation where it didn't work out. And then this is the DI track for the bass. So if a little more woolly, a little more well-rounded, not as scooped, not as aggressive. Yeah, when we throw them together, you kind of get this big booty bass sound. Yeah. Now, when we get past the verse, well, actually, let's go ahead and look at the vocals real quick. I'm pretty sure that my vocal chain for this was probably something really simple, like a 414 into a purple preamp. I'm a huge fan of the purple stuff. Like, technology is getting so good in music now that you can use such inexpensive gear and get amazing sounding records just with entry-level gear. It doesn't even have to be pro gear. So over the years, we've completely redone our studio setup so many different times. We'll try out stuff. We'll try out some more expensive stuff and then get rid of it and buy cheaper stuff that we like the sound of more. So we're constantly going through an evolution of gear in the studio. But the one thing that I've kept for a very, very long time are these Purple Biz preamps. I just think that they sound phenomenal. Here's the vocals that come in at the beginning of the song. So this is what you hear on the record.
I'm disguising all my whining with 3 chords and 4/4 timing. Line by line, I realize.
Okay, so let's strip this back a little bit. It's got some verb and delay on it. I don't think those are the same verbs and delays that made it onto the record when Jeremy mixed it. But this is what they sound like without any verb or delay.
all my whining with 3 chords and 4/4 timing. Line by line, I realize.
So that's 2 of me at one time. Here's just, oh God, I hate doing this. It makes me so nervous. Here's just one vocal of me.
I'm disguising all my whining with 3 chords and 4/4 timing. Line by line, I realize I'm the same I was when I was 5. I'll admit to narcissism.
And then when we add in me singing the exact same thing underneath it, it just thickens it up and gives it this really cool Haas effect.
I'll admit to narcissism. If it keeps me out of prison, my situation's tragic. 'Cause I can break a heart, but not these habits.
Okay, cool. So there's me. And then we head into the bridge and we start doing the cool choppy Weezer thing.
I wish I was a little more confident. I wish I had a little more of the it factor they say you need to amount to anything. I wish.
Okay, so this is one of my favorite parts of the song is the bridge, which is essentially the chorus. It like acts as a down chorus because it's almost identical melody to what happens when everything kicks in a few seconds. But one of my favorite parts of the song is this guitar line that kind of gets a little bit buried in the mix in the final version, but that I felt like was really fun whenever we tracked it. And I remember spending probably way too much time on it. It's a really simple line, but there's something about like clean guitars in the middle of all this like distorted chaos that feels kind of fun to me. So here we go. This is a couple of those guitars layered, I think, as I'm looking at a stem right now. So really, really simple line, but then whenever you put the bass underneath it, it actually and start to get a little bit more of that root, a little more of that bass line moving around, and it starts to feel a lot cooler. Yeah. Just really simple, but that combination of like clean guitar tone and bass just driving underneath it just gives me all of the pop punk nostalgia feels. I love it. It's my favorite. So we also have some synthesizers happening underneath all of this as well, and I will play those for you. So here's what's happening with the synthesizers. Yeah, so it's so funny listening to that sound now because it feels so pushed and so distorted that this is exactly what the next 11D record sounds like. It's not out yet, but these types of sounds, these synthesizers into distortion pedals and just mangled out of hell, it really did become the template for what we're doing with this next upcoming album. And it all starts out by being these little afterthoughts of songs like this, where we're just throwing in something that we think sounds really cool and dirty to kind of give the track some more character. So all together here.
I wish I rocked a little harder, pushed the line a little farther. I wish that I was okay being me. I wish I burned a little brighter, could make my heart a little lighter. I wish I wouldn't miss myself away. If I can't hide, I'll victimize me with 1,000 little.
Yeah. So that's the chorus where everything's kind of happening. The one thing that we haven't soloed yet that's happening in this chorus, it looks like is this little guy. Totally rental sounding synthesizer.
If I can't hide.
So that's happening in the background there. Yeah, just to kind of make it really fun. In the chorus, the guitars are pretty much just doing their job.
if I can't hide.
Yeah, and then the lead that we have down here is doubling that synthesizer.
If I can't hide, I'll victimize.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure that this part of the guitars doubling what the synthesizer is doing ended up just getting pushed way down in the mix, in the final mix, because the synthesizer just felt better there. Yeah, I'm assuming. Trying to think back that far, and gosh, it was almost 2 years ago that record came out. So this is one of my favorite parts in the song, though, where the guitars kind of start doing something a little more vibey with the drums coming out of this first. Yeah, so I love those like single note guitars just kind of chugging along and doing their thing. And I'm pretty sure I heard, yep, here's the piano track happening in there. I'm pretty sure the idea for this piano part came from me listening to so much ELO while we were writing this record or making this record. They just, there's something really effective about just playing octaves on a piano that can make something feel a little bit more cinematic or sincere. And yeah, but I thought that was a cool little part to throw in there. So then after that, it's business as usual with the chorus.
I wish I had a little more of the it factor they say you need to amount to anything. I wish I rocked a little harder.
Oh yeah, so when we get down here to those clean guitars again, in this second pre-chorus, pretty sure I put them through a filter or something, just to kind of make them stand out and be a little bit different from the first time you heard them. It's probably something that you'll never even recognize when you're listening to the song, but maybe it does something in your subconscious. Maybe I thought way too hard about it. And they just slowly kind of open up.
I wish I burned a little brighter, could make my heart a little lighter. I wish I wouldn't waste myself away.
So there's that. And then we decide to take like a pretty big nosedive right here, because we have all of this like sort of manic energy happening in the song. It feels really upbeat. It feels like all of these all the things that are giving us the pop punk feels. And then in terms of like songwriting, we're like, well, how do we condense what the message or what the feeling or the vibe of this song is into just a few lines? Because now that we've kind of like taken everybody off the roller coaster, we have this really, really short amount of time to leave them with something. And so I thought maybe the best way to do that is just change the mood really quickly. So we kind of teased that a piano is going to be used in the song earlier when we were doing those octaves a la ELO. So now whenever we come to this part, we just lean into a full-on piano part.
I wish I was a little more punk than pop, a little less cotton candy rock. And it's about time that I admit, I wish I wrote better songs
Without
than
vocals.
this.
So the piano kind of slows down right there. And I remember that being kind of a big deal because I knew that to get the effect that I wanted, we're going to have to kind of slowly like slow the piano down. But when it ended up happening is we just timed it out with the click track to where we knew where we wanted the song to come back in. And so I played that part probably 9 or 10 times to try to get that right. And full disclosure, I cannot play the piano that well consistently. So I'm pretty sure what I did was I split that part into like left hand, right hand, and just did a bunch of different takes, and then probably went in the MIDI information and moved some things around. I did end up having to play that part myself in a way that I don't normally do with synthesizers, because the piano is so expressive. You have to get all of this what's called velocity information down, because pianos sound different the harder that you hit them, or the softer that you hit them. They can sound very delicate, or they can sound very aggressive. And I feel like really good piano parts kind of walk this line of between all of that, between worlds of being able to get really loud when they need to and very delicate when they need to. So I feel like it's what adds to the realism of a piano part. A lot of times, if there's going to be a piano part like that onto something that I'm working on, I'll send it, and it needs to feel like an actual human who knows how to play the piano is playing it. I have a few friends of mine that I'll send it to because they are just absolutely brilliant ivory ticklers, and they enjoy that and can do so much more honed into how to do that than I am. It's one of my favorite piano parts that I've ever written, and it feels really, because I feel like it expresses sonically kind of what I'm thinking and what I'm feeling about during the song without me having to put words over top of it. This song at its very core is very much about self-doubt, about depression, and about feeling isolated, feeling alone, feeling like nothing ever works out. Always having this idea within yourself that you're never the best that you could be, that you're never your best self. And that if you could just get your shit together, if you could just stick to this diet, or you could just get really good at doing this vocal exercise, or if you could have a song that was this successful, or be in a band that was playing these kinds of shows, all of those things are not accomplishments to rest your self-worth on. They are not indicators of your value as a human, and certainly not of your value as a creator. It's been said that comparison is the thief of joy, and I absolutely believe that 110%. I feel like I live with chronically reminding myself of that over and over again, that if I can't figure out a way to be happy and experience joy now, what makes me think that when I accomplish something that I'll be worth any more then? Because there will always be another thing to accomplish. There will always be a next thing. The bar for measuring myself will always be moving, because it's all a lie. It's me giving into this idea that I become worth more, my value increases, that I experience more of what it means to be human and what it means to experience life on this earth. The more things that I accumulate, the more experiences that I accumulate, or the more professional successes that I have. And I have found in my life that absolutely none of that is true. So this song, in a lot of ways for me, is a litmus test. It's a litmus test for how I'm perceiving myself and how healthy that kind of self-information is for me. And oftentimes it's not. It reminds me that for me to want to be anything else than what I am in this very moment, to want to be anything greater or more successful or more popular than what I am at this very moment, is to believe that whatever I am in this moment is not good enough, that it's not worth anything, that it's not worthy. I've been doing this long enough to know that all of that self-deprecating, self-doubting inner monologue that is happening with you right now is absolute bullshit. And we get to make the choice of how we act. We don't always get to control how we feel. And a lot of times those feelings can just become immensely overwhelming, but we can always decide what we're going to do with our body, what we're going to do with our day, or our next steps, or our next plans that we make. And I've been doing this long enough to know that if you try to sit by yourself for a super long time and change the way you feel about something, and try to make yourself feel better about your circumstances, about the world, about who you are, about your self-worth, it's not going to happen. Let me tell you what works for me. I don't know what works for everybody, but this song, I have so many different feelings and emotions tied up in this song, but let me tell you something. It's getting off the couch. It's getting out of the studio. It's putting down my cell phone, putting down the computer, going out, hugging some friends, going for a walk, going for a run, petting a dog, reconnecting with a friend that I haven't spoken to in forever, because everybody has friends that are just littering their lives right now, and we all kind of fall through each other's cracks because we're so distracted. I just want to encourage you, if you're anything like me and you feel those kinds of things, I understand the struggle. I know what it's like to live with crippling self-doubt, and this is my medication, is writing songs about it and turning it from something that's not something I'm going through alone, taking it out of the realm of being an isolated experience and creating what I would consider to be art out of it, doing my best attempt at creating art out of my experience. And for me, that's writing these dumb little pop songs about it and sharing it with people. So wherever you are, whatever you're doing, whatever you're going through, I'm the kind of person waiting for your next dumb pop song, waiting to hear about what your experience is like on this planet, in this body, with these people. It helps me not feel alone. So let me just go ahead and thank you all who are listening in advance for all the wonderful songs that you're going to write and create and share with the world. So anyway, I got off on a tangent there. My apologies, but I'm sorry, not sorry. This is stuff I think about all the time, and I love being able to have these kinds of conversations. So here we go at the very last part of the song. We're kind of coming out of the bridge, and we have this ARP that has started playing over top of the piano that you can hear.
Myself away, yeah.
So this is like one of my favorite things about doing these solo button episodes is that when you solo vocals out of context of a song, they really do sound so ridiculous, and it's one of my favorite things. But I love how this ARP came out. These just little plucky kind of sounds running these chords, and I think underneath it, I was kind of like doing some little grindy synthesizer stuff too. Let me see if I can.
I wish I rocked a little harder. Push the line of
Mute that vocal real quick. Yeah.
I wish I burned a little brighter.
Yeah, so then we get back into the chorus. Yeah, it's business as usual until we get all the way over here. And then I think we extend for like one more bar in the chorus to make this one a little more punctuated. Yeah, so these muted vocals here sound like this at the very end.
I wish I wouldn't wish myself away.
And then with the double added in.
I wish I wouldn't wish myself away.
So there we go. And then we just kind of have these last little bumps on the bass. I love this. And we have all of these drums happening here. The very last time on the record that we hear our good friend Mike wailing away on these drums. Finish strong, my friend. What a great job. And then these guitars coming in here. Yep. So anyway, that was Wish Myself Away, and I hope that you enjoyed this episode of Solo Button. If you have questions or I did not cover something that you wanted me to talk about on this episode, let me know, because it helps inform future episodes of Solo Button stuff. This was definitely like a quintessential sort of pop rock, pop punk kind of a song. So there's not a whole lot going on, but everything that is going on, we try to make work together in a way that feels really fun and feels really coherent. This is probably the most reminiscent of old Eleventyseven that we did with the release Rad Science. It sounds like it probably could have come off of an album like Sugar Fist or something like that. So this was really a nostalgic song for us, being able to kind of pull this session back up and retrack everything and get it all spick and span for Rad Science. But I hope that you guys love this episode, and I will see you next week on 11D Live.